Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Time to do my wrap-up of the Florida International Audio Expo in Tampa. Great time. And I've done so many videos, probably 50 videos from the show like I normally do, and I've done wrap-ups each day. I've shared with you my thoughts as well as Dave and Doug's. But what I like to do in these wrap-ups is not so much regurgitate that. I like to do this off the cuff and just whatever pops to my mind of things I know I will remember forever with this show and what stands out from other shows, which is tough to do when you go as many as I go to. I like to share that in this type of video. I'll inevitably leave things out, but go to my individual videos as well as my wrap-up videos. You can tell when I go into a room if I like the brand, if I like the company and the people behind it. Just the fact that I go into these rooms tells you partially that I like them. I usually avoid ones that I'm not a big fan of. But in any case, this will give you a more focused favorites for me because these are the things I'm going to share with you today that I know I'll remember forever for this show. Starting though with the people behind the show that put on the show. They do an exceptional job of working with the press. And no surprise, this show had tremendous amount of press. I've never seen so many YouTubers and press there from all the magazines. They really court the press, treat them well. They even have a room up on the 12th floor. I don't use that podcast room, but you know, that's very friendly what they do. And it's such a counterbalance. I remember just a couple years ago, I was in the home entertainment show in LA. I was the only one that with any video coverage of the entire show. Now, it was coming back from COVID and whatnot, and it's a small show. But it's the difference between a small show on two different coasts. Also, in 2 years, there's been a lot of new YouTubers, too. I understand that. But, yeah, it's just they court the press really well, treat them well, and it paid off. I think I saw a cheap audio man there. I was going out of a room and there was a guy in one of those rooms that looked just like him. In any case, that would be pretty big for him to go to a show that's mainly the super high end. Although they had Gashelli there, SVS, a lot of stuff probably that's in his wheelhouse. And that's another thing that stands out for the show. I'll go ahead and talk about that. When you want budget brands at every budget, this show does give you that flavor, and even two rooms that had home theater. So Primaire, SVS, although I wanted to get into the SVS room and see if they had that new SVS speaker, it was too crowded. So that was one thing I didn't get into. And let me go ahead and talk about my disappointments for myself, not getting into certain rooms. That one, and then the TAD room I wanted to get into, but it's not my fault. I actually had a dedicated demo scheduled time before hours with TAD on Sunday, and I was there on time, but they weren't, or they weren't ready, or something happened. Maybe they partied too much the night before. I did shoot a short video from their party the night before in the TAD room, but you know, understandable when by the time Sunday comes around, I was understanding. I just can't stand around waiting though. There's so much I have to get to. I cannot, if I've got a scheduled demo, it has to be done at that time or I need to move on. And they apologized, said in Dallas they're going to give me a dedicated demo like we were planning. So no big deal. It's just a month later I'll cover the TAD room. I'm sure it would have been a great room because my friends went in there and they were very impressed. The other room I wanted to get into that I had disappointment with is I wanted to get into the Joseph Audio Sweet Spot, but I went in twice. First time was too crowded as usual, and then second time I wasn't in the sweet spot, but also they were playing Bob Dylan. It often gets blocked by YouTube, so I had to leave the room. But that would have certainly been in one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites last year with his Pulsars, so no question. So those are just disappointments from me not getting into certain rooms. But in terms of disappointing sound, yeah, there were a couple of rooms that I expected to be a lot better, but you can't judge these rooms solely on sound quality. You have to judge them and on one piece of material or two pieces of material while you're in there. So I'm not really going to ding specific companies. I mean, in my membership section, I will be a little more frank and I talk about those things in my WhatsApp group and whatnot. But, and speaking of which, if you want to earn a way into my WhatsApp group, there's two ways. You could pay $5 a month, which is hardly anything. I think you'll get a lot of benefit. You could buy a Bacch, you get automatic membership in it. Also, if somebody puts together a playlist from this show, from all my videos, I will give you free membership to my WhatsApp group. I don't have time to put together a playlist from all the rooms I went to, but this show, that's another standout before I get to the gear, that really impressed me. They had so many songs that weren't the stereotypical. Now, of course, you notice when I went into some rooms, I knew exactly what song that was. I've heard them a million times, going 40 years to shows. There isn't much that surprises me, but this show did have quite a few, and when Doug was with me, I was often nudging him to Shazam that tune, one of which was a cover of Jump by Van Halen, an orchestra cover of it. That was really good. Amphion Room. I'm coming back to that in a second. The Tom Petty, Learning to Fly. I mean, obviously I know that song, but that live version I had never heard. Well, I had heard it before at Capitol Audio Fest because I had picked out that tape, that analog tape. Jeremy was gracious to let me pick the analog tape that they played after hours for one session. And I picked this tape because it's got so much good stuff. Prince, Madonna, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, and more. And I really like the Ghost of Tom Joad that's at the end of that tape. But the first song on that tape was the Learning to Fly live version. And man, that is so good. Two reasons I found it good. Number one, they replaced the guitar riff in the studio version, the pop song that was popular, with a piano. And I love a piano. I own a piano. My daughter plays a piano. That substitution made it for me a much better song. And then the live concert integration with the audience. A lot of time these artists just turn over the mic and let the audience sing their most popular songs. And why do you go to a concert to listen to them yourself sing it? No. But what he did, he kind of orchestrated the audience to sing the chorus, but then he ad-libbed. And a lot of times the audience will stop singing when the artist goes back to singing. But no, that was a very special occasion where it worked really great. The audience was providing the chorus. Now, I did find a version on YouTube. I'll link it in the description. And Doug's going to give me some other recordings, and I'll put them in there. But if somebody can make a playlist, that's great. But I did find a live version, a couple of them on YouTube, similar to, not exact, but similar to the one that was on that analog tape. And one of them has Stevie Nicks in the background. Okay, that's background singer. So I'll put that link. You're definitely going to check out that one. But again, on Music Metrics, this was a great show. Cool music, loud. Mana Mana song in the Acora room, that almost brought a tear to my eye because my grandmother sang that song to me. And then the Ghost Rider at ear-bleeding levels, but super impressive to fill up that room at that level. Total composure. Took those VRC ones to a lot of people were just mind-boggled after he played that in that big of a room. Man, and the amps working with it. You know, I think that last year, I want to say that the VAC Integrated may have run out of gas when we were playing similar songs last year. But the VACs this year he had with him, totally controlled, and those speakers were performing great. People were blown away by that. So again, on Music Metrics, great. The people behind the show, great. Let's get to the gear. I did talk about in my wrap-up shows various gear, and I'm not going to regurgitate all of that. I really just want to focus on the few pieces of gear that I will always remember this show for because they're kind of new to me. Now, obviously, Acora room, MBL room, both during the show and after the show, provide immense level of, they're always the best of, because you just don't see people leaving. You don't see people moving. And that entire analog tape at 90 dB volume, I think I mentioned this, nobody was leaving the MBL room. That tells you something's going on good. Same thing in the Acora room. People don't want to leave these rooms. And there's plenty of other good rooms, but you're never sniffing the full potential of the gear in these rooms. Even the Acora room, yes, you get a massive sound stage in that room because he's got them set up so wide. He's basically doing quasi crosstalk elimination because they're almost set up like I'd say headphones, because your right ear is pretty much only getting what the right speaker and vice versa. So you can get this immense soundstage like you do in a home thing with the Bacch. So it's very impressive, but most people don't have that size room to be able to do it. And vice versa, most people with hotel rooms, that's not going to be as good as your room. So judging the gear on sound quality metrics alone is not the way to do it. What you want to do is obviously benchmark it against how they did with the same conditions as other people, but also try to talk to the people behind the brand. And that's what stood out to me in this show's two people in particular. Number one, Soundfield, one of the sponsors of the show, always has impressed me ever since I met the guy, doing kind of do-it-yourself, but custom builds, very impressive. But this time he had a line array of these drivers, but 3 of them combined, but then a line array of them, and then 12-inch drivers in a cabinet about the size of this, if not smaller, but tall, in a true line array, line source configuration, which I've never seen, horn loaded. And that was pretty amazing. And the price point in the 20s, low 20s, that's incredible for what you get, including that nice horn cabinet structure. I was impressed. The only thing I wanted to do is go back and hear it a little bit more with certain tracks, because he says that the 12-inch drivers that are in there are doing up to 400 hertz. And on, my knee-jerk reaction is I probably wouldn't think that would work as good, so I wanted to hear it. But he's got the acumen to probably make it work, and I wanted to see how that. But that's one of the few speakers where I've gone to a show and actually started thinking, maybe I'll put those in my room, because they would fit. They're only about a foot, 18 inches or less wide, and they're tall like this. But they were ones that I would say, I wonder how they'd benchmark against these. Both open baffle, both some similarities. Very impressive, at least at first blush. I'd like to go back and hear some more. But that guy's always impressing me. And so that'll be one of my standouts. Now, the other one that was a standout, and could be argued even more of a standout and more of a surprise, was Amphion. I went in that room with the distributor, and he gave a good presentation, and then he played Liberty, which is a song I hear plenty at the show as well as at my house. And this probably was the best version of Liberty I've heard at a show, especially in a small hotel room. And that's saying a lot, and it's closest I've heard to what I get here at home. The coherency, the delicacy, I was very shocked. And then the designer came in and gave a more formal presentation on his design philosophies, these dimples and the cardioid pattern he tried to get with the mid-range. Very innovative speaker, a company with a lot of pedigree in the industry. Looks are there. It goes down to 21 hertz, although I think it only has a 10-inch driver in there. I'm a little suspicious of that, but man, it worked. And I'm not going to say it rose to the level of IO Designs or Hyphen at prior shows, ones that just blew me away and wanted to, say, or hallmarks of the show. But I will remember this Amphion from this show for sure, forever. And I definitely want to hear him more at Exponent and in the future. I think this is one. You know what it does remind me of? It reminds me of when I went to 3MA and heard that Techniques reference one, the SR1B, whatever it's called. I think they discontinued it, but that was a killer speaker that was blowing away speakers that were 3 or 4 times the cost at 3MA, in my opinion. And that was what this one reminded me of. And it's also in that same budget range, 20 to 30,000, 20 to 25,000. This is a killer speaker, this Amphion, that I think people should get on their radar pretty quickly. So those two stood out on top of the MBL, the Acoras. As accessories go, let's talk about that real quick. I want to give a shout out to M101 Cables. They 3D printed this phone holder for me, made it easy for me to shoot the daily wrap-ups in my hotel room. It's got my logo on here. You can barely see it, but really cool. And again, very nice of them. They know I'm a dealer for Blue Jeans Cable now. I've been a big proponent of In Acoustic and Via Blue. Didn't have to do this. I've got no relationship with them business-wise. Very nice. And they have very impressive-looking cables, very similar to an acoustic. I don't know who's got what patents or whatever, but in any case, just a shout-out to them. Very nice, and they've always been friendly going to them at the shows, seeing them at the shows. Also, on the accessory front, Via Blue, which I have featured, I've got their cable elevators. I think their vibration things are under my GR Research and Extremes. I don't have any of their cables yet, but they were everywhere at the show. I had seen in every room, I was seeing Via Blue like never before. And if you notice, the Mako speaker from Capital Audio Fest, their wiring is going to be Via Blue. So they're great people to deal with. I can't wait to see them in Germany. So, and Capital Audio Fest. So that was another accessory company you definitely want to look out for. On the budget front, I think SVS and Geshelli, case closed. When you're looking at subwoofers that are in the budget realm, in fact, like I did in a recent video, I'd probably buy a sealed box SVS even over the REL 25 if I had my druthers to do it again, because of their continuous phase control and the high quality you get, and the customer service is just as good as the big brands, if not better. Just SVS, top notch with subwoofers. They do have a new floor standing speaker. I didn't get into the room to be able to hear it. It's got a little buzz, but I'm sure people, if Cheap Audio Man and some of these other people were there, they're going to be better off reviewing that kind of stuff. I'm just more interested in their subs, to be honest. And if it was home theater you're looking for, I think Primaire, and they have a surround sound processor that's blowing me away already just on first blush. I went into their room. That's got everything I'd want for a home theater. It's got the Dirac, it's got the pedigree, the looks, the high end, but not the ridiculous pricing markups that are, actually, we were just talking about this today. At one time, I hate to call it out, but it's been public, so it's not like me just busting this, but Sim Audio once just repackaged a Denon and put a big price tag on it, surround sound processor, and put a big price tag on it, sold it as high-end surround sound processor, and inside it was basically almost 100% just a Denon, some minor modifications. That's not what I like to see. What I like to see is companies like Primaire leverage their knowledge of doing a very high-end legacy and pedigree and creating a true unique product. And that's what this is, no holds barred, a surround sound processor that you can use for your preamp. You don't have to have home theater bypass and use two different systems. Can't wait to get that in my system. So Primaire definitely stood out. And Geshelli, I feel bad because I probably didn't even showcase all the model numbers that they had. They had several rooms, but definitely go back to my coverage at Capital Audio Fest. Again, guys like Cheap Audio Man, if they were there, or other people that cover the budget gear, will get into the models. But when you combine their value, their aesthetics, the casework that you can get even customized, unbelievable. That's what I find. Bespoke looks that are high end. You can't get better than what Geshelli's doing. And the performance is there. I mean, every time I go into their room, you're not really sacrificing anything. And on top of that, you're supporting a family-owned business, that's what I own. You can't look for a better company to support that gives you that kind of value and quality. I just don't think anybody at a budget level should look past Geshelli. Maybe go to Primaire and get an SVS sub if you need that. And they always pair with Source Points or other high quality speakers. Yeah, Geshelli has really come on my radar in the last year or so, and for good reason. They should stay on that radar because every time I see them, they impress me more and more. So those are the main takeaways from this show, other than meeting you guys, having fun. Obviously, the Bacch. I'm not going to talk about the Bacch because I have a vested interest in that. I don't want to shill for it. And I'm going to have so much coming on this ORC. It just pales in comparison. Whatever you guys heard at the show in Tampa show, it's getting even better. I have my whole demo there. Even off axis, you probably got a taste of good performance from those Dutch and Dutch speakers. Now, separate from the Bacch, those Dutch and Dutch speakers, those are killer. All in one, 15,000 with the amp. You know, even if you don't have the Bacch, although it comes with the Bacch intro, that's a speaker to look out for. And Mike Sweck, Unique Home Audio, he ran a great room there with both the Bacch and without it. You could try it. Definitely check out Dutch and Dutch. But I'll have a lot more on the Bacch and the ORC in the near future, so I don't want to talk about that too much. And I released my 40-minute whole presentation. You want to watch that. So hopefully you found this helpful. I'll put some links to music, and if somebody wants to make a playlist, send me an email, and I'll put you in my WhatsApp group. All right, guys, see you back here soon.